we were on the straight 2-lane highway, so that we were going straight, cars are coming the other way, and then across the horizon there was the storm that was moving into the mountains. And so we were line astern, and there were three of us. I was at the back, and basically all of a sudden, out of absolutely nowhere, there was this huge gust of wind, and obviously my bike's got, luggage on the back and all this kind of stuff, and it's a light bike. It's a KTM 500, and it literally blew me from the lane that I was in into the oncoming traffic, or into the oncoming traffic. And I fucking shat myself, dude, because it was instant. It was like an act of God. And I had the bike at probably 45 degrees to try and get the bike to turn back into the lane and avoid the oncoming cars. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of The Threshold. And my name is Matt Brown. Obviously, with me, as always, is Spilly, a.k.a. Super gay.
Wow, you went there.
And Rich, who's awesome, Mulholland. Yeah.
Thank you. Although gay is awesome, I'd happy to be gay too. Next month I could be.
I choose to be. You know what I mean? Every day, super happy.
Yeah, it's a dual income, no kids, right? What a win.
Fucking hell. We're living the dream, man. All of us walk past our gay friends, look at them, and give them that little bit of a respect. It's like it's like a bro code. Like, yeah, well done. They look back at you with your kids, like, it's okay.
Yeah. So, how's things been going, guys? What's the quick update? 2 minutes, Richard.
Feeling sick as a dog. It's just been gnarly. Just really, really struggling to shake. Throat infection that I had. I was in South Africa doing a gig and I lost my voice. 2 gigs the same day, 500 people each, no voice. It was pretty gnarly. But that was that. And then I was at a board game convention this week, which I really enjoyed. And the Isle of Man TT is on right now. So that's our evenings.
Yeah, I've been watching that. That stuff's next level there. Jeez.
Amazing.
And you, Brent, what's been going on?
A fair amount of travel the last month, not like Richard's travel, just all local, but every week for a night or two, which has been a little bit disruptive, but good. I've picked up a really interesting piece of work down in the Western Cape for the next 7 months on a 7-month contract, which is interesting because I've never an opportunity cropped up where it's a perfect intersection of all my skills and past experience. Like finding someone with my particular skill set for this particular problem is like needle in the haystack. And I was like, oh, I can do that. And I've got like, not just I can do it, I have genuine experience on these things. So it's like this weird, when someone presents a problem and you've got this weird, amazing solution for it, and it just seems obvious to me and not obvious to them. So yeah, I started on Monday, which is cool. I'm going to burn some proper hours on this. And, it's nice to have some newness. It's the different kind of cadence, different kinds of people, different kinds of problem solving. And weirdly enough, I don't produce work for my clients ever, right? Like we talk and I produce notes for them, but I don't do the work in their business. This is me doing work. I'm going to produce documents and actually get involved in meetings and do the work. And it sounds peculiar, but weirdly exciting for me to actually get like my hands a little bit dirty and actually do the hard graft. So I'm looking forward to that.
Is it coaching though, or is it more executional?
It's consulting and executional. It's actually it's commercialization of 2 business units within a very large business. Just that they're not making money and they don't know how to make money with the business. So it's coming in and figuring out efficiency, savings, retail and wholesale sales and new product development and just stuff that I think I know how to do. I've done it before.
Exciting, man. Exciting. Yeah, I was in New Mexico on a 3-day adventure ride with 5 other guys. Was pretty hectic. I don't think I've been on a adventure ride with so much uncertainty. It was just crazy. But lots of riding in the rain, nowhere to stay. Hungry. And
you do this for fun.
I do this for fun. Yeah. One guy broke his hand.
Oh.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I had a bit of a near death experience actually on the second day. And I was basically, we were riding on this tarmac. It wasn't even, off road, but the storms were coming in. So at this time of year, it's very unpredictable, like the weather. So like on the Saturday, it was hot. Like I had my shirt off, took my sleeves off my jacket, and then got on the bike. Half an hour later, hailstorm. Anyway, so it was like this the whole day. It would piss with rain, and then it would clear up, and then it would rain again, and whatever. Anyway, so we got back to Colorado, and we were on the straight 2-lane highway. So that we were going straight, cars were coming the other way, and then across the horizon there was the storm that was moving in into the mountains. And so we were line astern, and there were three of us. I was at the back, and basically all of a sudden, out of absolutely nowhere, there was this huge gust of wind, and obviously my bike's got luggage on the back and all this kind of stuff, and it's a light bike, it's a KTM 500, and it literally blew me from the lane that I was in into the oncoming traffic, or into the oncoming traffic. And I fucking shat myself, dude, because it was instant. It was like an act of God. And I had the bike at probably 45 degrees to try and get the bike to turn back into the lane and avoid the oncoming cars. And thankfully, the wind let up, and then I was suddenly able to veer the bike back into, the lane that I should have been in. But it was touch and go. And Stephen Green, he's like a proper adventurer. I'll talk to you about him as well. But he was watching me, and we were all being blown. It wasn't just me. But it was tight, dude. It was tight. And we were at the campsite that night. We were talking about it, and I said to them, if I had died, it would have been a complete act of God. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I made a mistake, or I dropped the bike, or I was riding too fast, or not like the TT guys in the Isle of Man. Rich, you can talk about that in a moment, but it's not like you pushing it, and then you made a mistake and you clipped the wall and you did. This was literally like you're doing 100 k's an hour, 60 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you're in this situation. And yeah, anyway, but it was pretty scary. It was pretty scary.
I mean, one could argue that it wasn't your fault, but then, back to Richard's sarcastic comment is like, I'm sorry, you put yourself in the situation for fun, therefore it was your fault, right? And to the same vein, you put yourself on a motorcycle, that alone is, putting your life at risk. So, and from a motorcyclist, and you all are as well, you get this, but the fact is that you've made the choice, and you made choices to get into that sort of situation where you've put your life at risk. And yes, act of God in the wind, but in a car wouldn't have been a problem, or sitting on your couch at home wouldn't have been a problem. So it just depends how you do. And I know I'm speaking to a couple of atheists here, but the sort of act of God, I think that, you put yourself in the situation. Can I say one more thing quickly? As harrowing as that was at that point in time, and I'm hungry and I'm cold and I'm wet and nowhere to sleep, the further away you get from that period, like in the next couple of weeks, that is going to be the biggest adventure you've had in a very long time. And it's going to be inspiring and motivating, and you're going to love it. And it's a good story. And that's the adventure piece, right? That's the adventure motorcycling. People talk about that. It's like, it's not easy. It's a difficult thing to do. It's not always fun, but that's the adventure. That's the whole point of adventure riding. Not oncoming traffic, but the rest of it. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. It's literally, we spoke about this. We've just to finish the story. So we had nowhere to sleep that night. We lost two of the guys. Pat broke his hand, so I don't know how he managed to ride for another day after that. But he bailed. He was like, I'm out. Then another guy, Bradley, he couldn't keep up because he was a sort of a beginner rider. So that basically it was Robbie, myself, and then Steve, and we had nowhere to stay. So we found this town called Salida, had a quick beer, and then we missioned. We had to get food. We had to get like fire stuff. We had to, blah, blah. And thankfully, Stephen, more than anyone I've ever met in the state of Colorado, he knows everything. He knows all the passes. He knows the names of all the mountains. He knows all the campsites. He knows, like, it's crazy how much information he has. So thankfully he knew where this campsite was, and we rode up there. It's pissing with rain. And then the campsites are full because the whole world's here now because it's like getting warm. And eventually we found this view. It was the most beautiful view that I've seen in the States. I think I sent you guys some pictures of it. It was crazy, dude. Like, you could see like all these 14ers. The rain was dropping, and then the sun was setting, and the sun was coming through the sky. It was totally insane. And we actually didn't even camp in a campsite. We actually rode into the bush, which you're not supposed to do. And then we're setting up camps in the rain and whatever. And anyway, so we were talking about that point. And I was like, and I was stressed. My chain loosened. I almost lost my chain. Then we were doing mechanicals in the rain. It was like, fuck. And I was completely out of my comfort zone. But then at the campsite, that's literally what we said. It's like, the whole point is to not know where you're going to stay. The whole point is to be hungry. You know what I mean? The whole point is to, go through these experiences where you're not comfortable. That's why it's called adventure riding. And that is the point, to sit on the bike in the rain, getting blown across the road, to your point. And it's just to sit there and actually appreciate that it is the journey. It's not the fact that you need to go and sleep.
I love that word. I'm the membership chair of an EO chapter, US East EO chapter. And we use the line, we're not as rigid as other EO chapters in terms of you must do this, you must do that, you must do this. We're kind of a chapter for existing EO members who want to study a different experience. And so we've curated different experiences for them. And the line we say to people is, it's a choose your own adventure as long as you choose adventure. And the idea is that, we're not going to map everything for you. We want some unknowns, but we want you to pick a lane and go for it. And I think there's this notion of, I don't think we live in adventure nearly enough. To what you said there, I think I'm so glad Brent pushed you on that, because that last insight around the idea of that line you said, it's called adventure riding for a reason. Is something wonderful in that. Because my first thought that I was getting to was the whole do hard things thing. But running an Ironman is a hard thing. I'm not sure it's an adventure. And I think I'm not even casting judgment on one versus the other, but I'm saying that we maybe don't recognize the difference enough. And it's important that we do, because I think adventure matters. Doing hard things where there is no known entity. I think it's something quite special.
But I think weird enough is that, like, the in an Ironman, it's a known journey. There's a start, there's an end. You know what it looks like. It's going to be incredibly hard. I can't imagine even considering.
And there are many
it.
unknowns while you're doing it.
Sure, but it is quite a linear thing. You sort of know it's for the day. I know this is what it is, and you can probably opt out at any point in time, right? When you're in the middle of nowhere and you haven't got a place to sleep, you can't opt out. You've got to find a place to sleep. So the journey is unknown. There's no end in sight. And I think what's interesting around that is that, and it's a conversation going back to this piece of work that I've just picked up, different from the conversation here, but similar. It's the fear. And that sense of fear, Matt, when you went, like, I was scared. I've been on motorbikes where I've been scared, not from the speed of stuff, but going like, am I going to make it? I'm so tired. My hands are cramping because I'm dehydrating. I'm actually like starting to get into a panic state of fear. But what that does, interesting enough, it releases different kinds of hormones, which are probably quite good for you to balance the other ones out, number one. But number two, it's the thing around, like, you only improve if you're scared of doing something, or you're scared of something. Otherwise, life is too cushy, and it's very easy to be cushy in this current world. Like, it's super easy just to put on the headphones, the goggles, and play games all day and order Uber Eats. You could just do that all day. But that element of pushing yourself to know that there may be a point of fear, even that it could get scary, is scary in itself. And I think we need to go and search for more of that, as opposed to deliberately looking for scary stuff. It's when you get on the bike and you're going, okay, we're going to go out in that direction and we'll find a place to sleep. Just that. Even if the weather is peachy and you find a place easy, that, I don't know where we're going, is quite fearful. And I think that's quite exciting. And we should do more of it.
Guys, I think at some stage we should be honest with ourselves, and I'm not even saying this disparagingly, and say we should recognize that we are a podcast for people who live at the intersection of business and motorcycles, business and bikes, because we almost move away from every topic. Like, sorry, I know you don't fully, but the truth of the matter is, this is this is the metaphor, the core metaphor that holds the show together, because we have almost 3 different styles of writers here as well. Like, but we all have, for example, we all have that understanding of riding in the wind. If there was one thing I wish people in cars could understand, is what riding in a side gust feels like. I think I may have told you guys before, but I was riding to a gig out in Paul, and it was kind of a light rain, and this wind was blowing me. And I was clearly struggling. I think this woman could see, when you got that counter steer going on, you're basically in a permanent counter steer. And it's shit, because when there is a gap, you kind of go. And I couldn't see, and I kept on cleaning my visor. And this woman got in front of me, drove, put on her hazards, and drove slowly the whole way in front of me like a guardian fucking angel. And then, like, I have no idea who she is. And she must have driven in front of me for like 30 odd minutes, just riding. I feel like she rides, or she got a partner that rides, and she just knows. And Amazing. She just sat there with her hazards on, riding in front of me like a support vehicle. And then where I pulled off, flashed her, thank you. She turned off her hazards, she bombed away, and I got off. And I thought, like, yeah. And again, I also recognize that people say, oh, well, you chose to be on a bike, but some riders, that's what they can afford. That's what they have, and for sure. But it's just nice for people to understand what you're going through. Yeah, I think it's a really naughty story. Out of interest, one little data point you just dropped out there. What happened to the poor guy? Imagine joining a bunch of friends on a bike trip, and one motherfucker is not as good as the rest of you. So he just is like gone. What happened? Did he just bail? Where did you leave him? Is he still sleeping by himself in New Mexico?
Let me tell you this. If you're that guy, he was basically like a sort of semi-retired financial services economist, right? So he knows what stocks to invest in and whatever. But I've never met a guy who's so self-deprecating in front of other men in my life. Like, in my life. Like, he would be like, well, I guess... So we know that heel thing that we were going up... I put a video out yesterday about it. So he's standing on he drops his bike as well, and then he says, well, I guess I'm the bitch of the group. You know what I mean? Just like, and we're like, what? Dude, it's okay, bro. We here, we're all riding buddies. We're here to help you. It's fine. And he kept saying like random things like that, even at the campsites and fire. And people were like, I can get it.
It's nothing worse though than feeling like you're holding people back. I actually enjoy it, not on a motorcycle, like on a snowboarding trip. I like riding with somebody that's a bit better than me, because I want somebody, that's one of the places you don't want to be in front. You want to be a little bit at the back because you want to push yourself. I guess on a motorcycle to a degree, just as long as it's not too much, because then you feel that you're riding outside of your safety band.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very similar to, it's weird because I was thinking about that earlier about the snowboarding and keeping up. But, the snowboarding thing is cool. So you can't keep up, but we'll meet you at the bottom of the slope or at the hotel tonight. Like, again, definitive rendezvous point. But when we've left this guy behind in the middle of nowhere and we're deciding where to go, that's properly abandoning someone. That's different.
No, he chose to leave. He was like, I'm not comfortable. And that's good. You shouldn't push yourself.
But I want to say the following. So I've done that with a bunch of guys where I'm absolutely the novice. And the only reason I keep going back with those guys because I know those guys will wait for me at the next T-junction or the next corner. Like, even though they may not ride with me, I know that they've got me. And that gives me a sense of comfort. And the fact that if I drop my bike, they'll come back, help me pick up my bike if I can't do it on my own type thing. So it's huge for me to have that kind of support mentally, even if you don't ever use it, as opposed to going on my own. So like,
yeah, but it's terrible. I wouldn't want to go with guys that you're holding everybody back. If this dude was riding thinking everyone hates me, I'm just bringing the group down. They keep on waiting for me, and I guess that's the whole. When you go out for a group, I guess here's where the caveat for that would be: if the guy turned around and said, I'm not very good at riding, and everybody in the group says, no, we'll go slowly, then it's on the group. But if they turn around and said, well, we're an intermediate group, and to be honest, we're, such and such, and he says, no, I'll keep up, but then it's on him. So there is a bit of a knowing where you fit group, because you want to ride with people who are somewhat of the same group of you.
So somewhat, yeah, and want to enjoy the same sort of things. Matt, I just want to go back to the near death experience that you sort of said. I mean, I'm curious to know, was there a moment where, obviously you didn't come off, nothing actually happened, so it wasn't a near death experience, it was just a harrowing experience. But was there a point where you had those flashes of, I see my life before me? Like I've never had one of those experiences. We've all heard the stories of, I saw the white light, I thought of my kids, or like, was there a moment like that, or was it not that extreme? I'm trying to work out where on the almost death experience were you?
Yeah, it probably not like a true NDE, you know what I mean? Like where you were dead and then you came back to life. But I think it was this feeling of just not being in control of a situation, you know what I mean? And you're watching the car crash happen, and you're like, no matter what I do, like I can't get this bloody bike to go the right way. And then the longer that, the longer you're in that space, the anxiety, and to your point, like the fear, you're like, fuck, okay, could this be it? But no, it wasn't like, I had an allergy to penicillin and, some doctor gave it to me. Like that actually happened to my mom. So my mother had an NDE, and she saw the light and all that kind of stuff. But no, it wasn't quite there. But, it was enough to recognize what you appreciate in life.
And was there a lesson in terms of motorcycling that you've taken away in terms of, okay, because you're going, well, I was only doing 100 k's an hour in the winds, like I'm going, 100 k's an hour isn't exactly slow.
Yeah, like slow and flying worse, right? You want to be going slightly faster.
So I'm trying to look at, was there a motorcycle lesson here you can share?
Yes. Stay on the right side of the lane.
Yeah, dude,
like
when
don't
I'm
ride in the middle,
In Cape Town, I never ever sit in the middle of the lane. I'm always on the far side, because the amount of times I've been blown, it actually gets to a point where as long as you're not blown into the other lane, you get kind of used to it. That's just what riding in Cape Town's like.
Yeah, just give yourself a barrier, of like a space.
But what's also interesting about that is that I went from an 800 to a 1200 from the Ducati to the Triumph. And I realized that the 800, when those big trucks would pass you either way, that I'd feel getting blown around, where on the 1200, less so. So I get the fact that you don't want a bigger bike adventure because it's just a pain in the ass and you drop it. It's a story. But like on those long distances, the extra, 100 kilos, whatever that is in pounds, actually makes a big difference in terms of stability on the road. So again, pick your bike for your ride, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys had an NDE?
Well, yeah. So as I mentioned in the top of pre-chatting. So yes and no. Let me explain to you. I mean, I've had an experience once before where I thought I was in a plane that was going to crash, which was pretty gnarly. It's still like my nightmare way to go, because you kind of feel like you're going down. But so 3 weeks ago, I was in South Africa. I was doing a gig. I mentioned it. I had a throat infection. I was feeling really terrible. I was on my way back. I stopped off via Bristol. Then I had a gig in Manchester that I was driving up to. So I rented a car, driving from Bristol to Manchester. And I pulled over. And as I pulled over, this yellow urine-like liquid just started flooding from my head. And it was the color of pee. That's all I can say to you. And it was the texture of pee. Clear, like light yellow, like straw colored.
But coming out of where though?
Out of my nostril.
Okay.
So I'm looking at this thing and thinking, what the fuck? Anyway, it's all over my water bottle. It's in the car. So I take a photograph, send it to Jazz. I go in at a truck stop, because I'd stopped at a truck stop already, and I'd bent over, and then that's when it happened. So I go in, and Jazz sends me a screenshot, and she says, it's CSF, it's brain fluid. This is really, really bad. Get to hospital immediately. So then all of a sudden, everything starts getting hectic, and I'm just I feel like I'm unable to speak. I don't know what's going on. I've lost my ability to speak. I couldn't get my words. And my body, I started losing the ability to control my body. So I grab a lady who's walking past me at the Costa and the services, the kind of road stop. And I said to her, I'm so sorry to bother you. I think I might be having a stroke. Take a photograph of my wife's number just in case anything happens to me. She's like, oh my God. So she takes a photograph of this. The lady from Costa comes running over and they put down. And so now I think I'm having a stroke. My entire body is just fucking shaking. Everything's crazy. Anyway, they move me over to another side. They call 999. We're on the call to them. It was quite hectic. Like, I actually laughed in the middle of it. This lady said, she said, describe your circumstances. I said, like, this urine-like liquid came out my nostril. And she says, oh, I'm going to have to put you, and she puts me on hold. And then she comes back later. Now, there's the manager of the services, the lady from Costa, and this other lady are there. Where I'm on speakerphone. My whole fucking side of my body is shaking. Things are going crazy. And she says, she comes back on and says, okay, I've checked with a specialist. It's physically impossible that you are urinating from your nose. What the fuck? I was like, and the guy from the services, the manager, is like, he didn't say he's urinating from his nose. He said it's a urine-like substance. Anyway, so an ambulance arrives. You go through the tests. The lady actually turned around and just says to me, no, they don't think it's anything. Just go see your local GP. Now, just get in your car, carry on driving, go see your local GP. Now, at this stage, my entire body is just in shaking. I cannot sit still. And now, here's the thing. Okay, so the caveat is that it was nothing. Here's the deal. At the time, I started to think, because Jazz said, like, this is kind of what happened to Auntie Anne, and Auntie Anne died. She come off a plane when she was sick, and she had the aneurysm. So now what starts happening is in my head, I'm like, when I stand up, I'm going to have an aneurysm and then I'm going to die. This is what's going to happen now. I'm having a stroke and everything's finished. So, okay, fast forward, ambulance comes, they do checks, take me to the hospital, see 2 triage nurses. Then I see the first doctor. Then he's a bit worried. So I see a specialist. Then the specialist comes. It's snot and a panic attack. Okay, so I'm taking you to the end of the story. It's not quite. It's basically, he said, look, we had to check, but CSF only happens in one of 2 things: either trauma, so you banged your head recently, which you said you haven't, or a basically mass infection in the base of your skull, which would have severe headaches, which you don't have. So it's not that. And then when I said to the second specialist, because by now I'm feeling totally fine, I've been sitting in hospital for 5-6 hours, and I'm saying, listen, this thing happened. I sent a picture to my wife. My wife told me to get straight to the emergency room, and then I started feeling the symptoms. I'm pretty certain I gave myself fucking an anxiety attack or panic attack, which it seems like is exactly what happened. Now, here's the only reason I bring it up. I bring it up because it's a weird thing. So I was sitting with my cousin Robbie, drove up from Bristol, and we were chatting. We weren't actually talking about this, but we're talking about, he's a big skydiver. He's done 3,000 jumps, and we're talking about the micromort ratio of, how many jumps. So now he's now at the, every time he jumps out of a plane, he's a 3 out of 100 chance of dying by the numbers. He's done it so many times that now he's within because 1 in 10,000 is the number. Anyway, so I said, oh, does it ever happen? Have you ever jumped out of a plane, been hit by the plane, or have you ever anything? He said, no. He said, but once I jumped out of a plane, I was nearly hit by another plane. The plane behind didn't realize it was where it was, and it went into me. I said, Jesus, how were you able to concentrate the rest of the flight down? He said, well, I didn't notice until I got to the ground. And we were watching the video. We thought we had a great jump. And then we saw it happen above us in the video footage. And I was like, oh, how did it affect you? He said, well, it didn't, because I was already down and it was like way before, but it was interesting. So here's the weird premise. And it's this, is that Robbie had a near-death experience, but didn't know about it, so was completely fine. I absolutely did not have a near-death experience, but I thought I did. And I sat there thinking, am I at the point where I'm going to send a message to the children saying goodbye? What am I going to say? And how will I recover? And what if I don't recover and I've not sent the message? Because I think I'm going to be fine, but what if I'm not? So I sat there contemplating, and then the services was built to this kind of where they put me in the corner. There's a window out to these fields. And I thought, well, this is not what I planned on seeing when I was dying, but at least I'm looking at nature. This is where I am. And so I'd resigned myself through sheer stupidity to the fact that I'm about to die. And so it's kind of strange, right? Is that it was an absolute near life experience. It was nothing but a panic attack. But I feel like I'm way closer to the emotions because I'm sure I've been in near death experiences on my motorbike, like where I've done stupid shit. But this was the first one that actually sat with me where I had to take some time in the weekend and really sit with how the fuck I felt. So it's so bizarre because the answer actually to Matt's question is no. I've not had a near-death experience, but at the moment, I absolutely thought I did.
Amazing.
Well,
Sorry, Matt. Rich, without mentioning too many names here, we've got a mutual friend, Mark, we've known for many, many years. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So him and I have this amazing relationship. We've known him for many, many years. I consider him to be one of my best friends. And we make jokes and we have stupid WhatsApp calls and stuff like that. But about a year ago, I get a WhatsApp call going, like, how's it put? I get a message going, I shat my pants. So I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, no, I've just been in hospital. So I phoned him. So, what's going on? He goes, and the reason I'm saying this is that it's the same story as you, is that he'd spent the day in the Western Cape, in like Stellenbosch somewhere. It was really hot. He had a couple of glasses of wine. He was totally dehydrated, got back to the hotel room with his wife and daughter, and he started feeling like something was wrong. And it was because he was severely dehydrated, and he started panicking. He didn't realize he was panicking, and his whole body went into shock. And he landed up lying on the floor in the bathroom, like convulsing. His wife thought he was having some kind of stroke. They called the ambulance, and in this moment, literally shat his pants. Okay, so of course it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time, but what was more funny is that the paramedics rock up in the hotel room, and they run up into the room and go, "Okay, this is a problem. Let's get him down." They locked the keys in the ambulance. Okay, so they couldn't do anything. Number one, they solved that problem. Now he's lying on the floor thinking he's dying, hey? They solved that problem. Then they went back up and they realized they put him on a gurney, and the gurney wouldn't fit in the little lift because he was on the second floor or something. So there was like this comedy. They put him on a chair and they carried him down the stairs into the public space of the hotel with his poopy pants. Okay. And then the doc said to him, you had a panic attack. And you produced this thing on your own. You wound it up so quickly in your head that it became a convulsion problem. And there's a term for it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's an attack that happens, and it's happened to him twice. But what's so interesting around this is that your mind's ability to convince yourself that something is horrifically happening, and then your body goes into some kind of fight or flight reaction to it for whatever it's doing. And it's probably a protective thing more than anything else, weirdly enough. Like that reaction is to actually calm you down, weird enough to like make sure you're not doing anything like getting in a car or something, I'm guessing. But it's interesting because that sounds like the second time I know someone now who's had a panic attack to the point where like actually debilitating.
And it's all the thing with
in the head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the thing with Mark's story as well, is that you make it feel real. But I believe, no, it's funny that you said it happened twice. I feel like now that I know, I'll be a lot more aware of if something like that happens. Because I don't stress. I generally don't panic about anything. The other thing is that the doctors said to me, even if something sounds like it is an anxiety attack, they make it the bottom of the list because it manifests as other things. They've got to make sure it isn't the other thing first. Yeah, that's why I had to get a specialist in the end. Yeah. But it's just fucking embarrassing, right? When all said and done, you just humiliate. You went through it.
Completely. But the question I got for you, like, I'm going back to that moment where it's like, do I send the kids? At that point, did regret crop up in your mind anyway? Were you regretful of like, what have I done? I should have done this. I didn't do that. Was there any kind of thought around that at all? Or was it all around like final words?
No. So I've certainly no regrets, but I've often thought about, and I'm pretty certain. I mean, listen, we reconstruct memories now, right? So as you asked the question, I remembered thinking, but now this could be reconstructive. But I've thought this a lot of times, that I've lived a really good life anyway. Like, if anything happened to me at 50, it's not like I'd feel like, oh, well, it's a life half lived. Like, I think I've lived a very, very full life. Like, I wouldn't, if something happened to me now, it's not like I'd think like, oh, well, I didn't do much or achieve much or feel fulfilled. So I feel like on that level, it's fine. I remember previously when I was on the plane and it was going down and everyone was praying. It was like literally like banging down. It was horrible. Everyone's praying and singing and screaming. And it was really, really shit. And I remember just taking out my phone and looking at the photo of Jazz and the kids and being relieved that I didn't feel the need to hedge my bets on a God. Like I knew that I wasn't going to do a last minute, and I thought, okay, good. My lack of belief is strong enough that I didn't, cop a last minute. Okay, but just in case, and in that instance, I remembered feeling fine around that.
I didn't know you were both atheists, though.
How did you not know that? Isn't this the Business Atheists and Bikes group? Sorry, I think you're in the wrong forum here, my friend.
ABC, Atheists, Bike, and Capitalism.
I think
you as well.
Yeah.
I'm just watching very interestingly. I don't know because I'm busy watching the follow-up video. Did you watch Jordan Peterson's debate on Surrounded with the 20 atheists?
No.
When was that? Recent?
Came out last week. So it was quite interesting. It said it originally was up as Christian Debates 20 Atheists. And then in the debate, Jordan Peterson refused to say he was a Christian. And so actually they had to change the name 4 hours after it went live to Jordan Peterson Debates 20 Atheists. I watched the whole thing. I'm now watching breakdowns of it. It is the single worst outing of Jordan Peterson that I've ever seen. Now, not because I've watched Christians debate atheists, like Charlie Kirk debate atheists and stuff like this. The show's format is set up that the person in the middle has the power. They're the hero and everybody else is there to debate them. And I've watched most of the time, you kind of end up agreeing with the person in the, or you respect the person in the middle. There's zero respect. He did such a terrible job. He's like a bully with big words. And like, I've never been a big fan of his. That one made me an almost anti-fan. Like he's just not, he's not smart.
Can I say what's really interesting around, so there's two people that 5 or 6 years ago came into my orbits, right? Scott Galloway and Prof G and Jordan Peterson. And for a very long time, I was like, these people are geniuses. And the thing which is making me sad about both of them is that, and this is just my opinion, obviously, is that over the last 4 or 5 years, my rating of them or my thinking about them has just consistently deteriorated as they have become more famous. And it's mostly because the narrative has become so either political or Christian, and Jordan Peterson was always Christian, but the more you engage them, the more you realize
he says he's not.
Say it again?
He argues he's not, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, but okay. But my point being is, it's interesting to me that people that are held in very high regard, the more content I've watched, the less highly I respect them, because of either I see the flaws in their thinking or the conflict between what they say over a period of time. Like they actually like what's the word? Like they say the opposite of what they said before. There's conflict in what they've said. But also I find that when people start getting weird enough, like really get the trajectory, like those two guys, in my opinion, became very famous globally quite in a fairly short period of time for being academic, right? Like they didn't do anything else besides be really smart and have really strong use of language, Jordan Peterson specifically. But I find that there's something very hollow to that, where there are other people who I've gained more respect because they're less opinionated, if that makes sense.
So I'll say briefly, and Matt jump in. The reason for me as a speaker, I can tell you where this comes from, is that when they weren't famous, they didn't have an audience. They spoke to audiences, and an audience hadn't emerged yet. At some point, Prof G had a Prof G style audience member, and a part of Prof G's archetype is what appealed to that person. So if you took like a Matt Walsh, for example, Matt Walsh is a right-wing Christian, conservative. Now, Matt probably has nuanced views on lots of things, and probably most people would agree with him on a ton of stuff, but that's not his audience anymore. His audience is now people who Bible Belt Christian Americans with a very, very conservative point of view. So instead of him having nuanced ideas, you can predict the idea that they have on every topic the moment you go in. And that's a problem because at this point, they cannot risk losing their audience. There is a loss aversion to it. Yeah. Matt?
That's interesting.
It's the same, but I think you're right. I mean, I think it's this idea of novelty to original, non-obvious thinking that's appealing, and you're like, oh, this guy's awesome. So like Gary Vaynerchuk as an example, I don't see anything of him now, like nothing. I don't know what's happened, and potentially it's the same reason, right? He was like saying all these cool things. Social media appealed a lot to like the youngsters and stuff, but how to build businesses and that, and now like disappeared, you know. But again, I think it's just like to continually be on the cutting edge of like non-obvious original thinking and to stay there for a long, long time. No one can, you know what I mean? Like you can't be consistently that awesome all the time. Tony Robbins, you know, another one, you know, awesome, you know, personal power, you know, back in the day. And now he's banging on about, you know, testosterone. So like, do you know what I mean? There's only so many times you can walk across coals, which I've done.
This feels like a setup for Richard's book.
Yes,
the
exactly.
relentless relevance. It feels like we're literally teeing him up for something.
Come on, Richard.
Yeah,
Not
but
connect the dots
when
there.
you're saying that, too, right? That you got to maybe, because I often wonder, like, oh, I wish I'd have a breakout moment at some point. And maybe the later it happens, the better it is to some degree. Because you can sustain reputation as an older person, maybe in a way that you can't as a younger person. I also wonder with Vaynerchuk, if part of that's by design, is that he's built up like now, because I don't see him as much, but I think he's probably not creating as much because he's got such a foundational, you know, business behind him. I think also in the crypto bros, like the Gary's friends and the
But it may also just be by design, Rich, is that fame isn't all it's cut out to be based on everything we hear from famous people. So he may have got a lot of fame and realized this isn't actually what I want. And maybe, and again, Matt, I have no idea, but he may have just gone, actually, I just want less limelight. I'm just going to stop being that guy. Tick the financial box. I'm okay. I've got what I've done, proven I can do it. Time with the kids. You know, you never know what else has happened. But yeah, it's a good point because it's a name I haven't thought of in probably a year and a half. And at one point, it was all over my timeline. Like, then you go like, I wonder what has happened to him. Rich, I want to go back. Maybe this is actually a question for Matt. Just in terms of the lack of regret, the plane going down, the panic attack. Is there anything like now that you're calm and you're rational about it and non-emotional, not scared, all those things? Is there anything you're kind of going, but I wish I could still do the following? And whether it's more travel or, you know, more toys or more time with someone or like, and not regret that I didn't do it historically, but I would regret it in future if I don't do the following. More forward thinking. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Richard or?
Well, Matt.
Yeah, I should be doing more writing. Seriously. Like, I don't know. It's just, you know, life's so short and, you know, like you can have a panic attack and think that you're dying and maybe you do die. Maybe you do get blown off a bike and whatever, you know. But life's meant to be lived, you know, and I think I wish I had done more of that. I wish I had taken more risk, you know. Not stupid risk. I mean, I've done loads of drugs and been risky. But I'm talking about like life experiences, like you said, that you won't ever regret. I mean, every time I go on a ride, I make a connection with another guy, you know, whoever it is, whatever their age is, and we have this shared experience, and they will always now be part of my, you know, my family, quote unquote, because we went through hell and we now, and also because that experience reveals character. It reveals and also builds character. And so, you know, and the more you go through those sorts of things with the same people, the same group, the stronger that connection becomes, and the more trust you have, you know, that you're going to be okay. despite what you don't know or despite the uncertainty. And I think that that's a rare thing. It's a rare thing. Like the more time you and the three of us spend together, you know what I mean? The more we get, it's the same thing. It's a different context, of course, but it's the same thing. So I wish I had done more of that, because I think I was saying this the other day, like, obviously I'm South African living in America. Do you know how hard it is to make good friends? Like, how would I create like a friendship like this, like the ones we have? It would take me 20, 30 years, right? With Americans normally. So like you're having a braai or a barbecue at the house, maybe you go for dinner, then there's kids' birthday parties and blah, 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 blah. Dude, I promise you that it would take 10, 20 years to have that sort of foundational trust or relationship. Dude, in 48 hours, you create the same thing. You know what I mean? You know exactly who this guy is, and you know you can rely on this person. And I don't think you have that certainty in a lot of sort of general social circles anymore.
Can I just chime in there, and then I want to ask Rich about his future regret? Is one of the rides I did about a year and a half ago, a similar thing where getting dark, we were miles away, the road was super sandy, it was a very unpleasant experience. I hadn't had anything to drink, and I had to keep stopping because my hands were literally cramping because I was dehydrated. And the guy that I was with, I've known him for a long time, but we were friends in school, hadn't seen each other for 25 years. First time we'd been out together on a ride, so you don't really know this person. And he was like, stop, take off your helmet, relax, give me your hands. And while it was getting dark in the middle of nowhere, this dude is massaging my hands, all right? Now, like you can say, Brokeback Mountain, a little bit gay, but in terms of a sense of trust and relaxation, in terms of, I know that, take Richard's face. But in terms
I
of,
thought Matt smiled.
Gay.
I saw Matt
exactly
smiling, and then he had me going. Because yeah. Anyway, go back to so there's a man rubbing your hands.
Okay, but the point is that there's a connection of trust, right? Is that I know that I'm uncomfortable, and he's helping me relieve the cramp. But my point being is that I get what you're saying, Matt. Is that connection in terms of me trusting and knowing what kind of human he is, in terms of his ability to go, I will do something like genuinely awkward to take away some pain. You don't get that on a day-to-day basis. It takes a long time to find people that you can trust like that. And that's just one little instance, right? So I completely agree with you. Rich, future regrets?
Okay, I'm going to come to my future regret because I do want to cover it. I don't want to deviate too far from Matt's point first. So I think, I know I bang this drum a lot, but hobbies. Hobbies, basically the world, we're all homogenous. And hobbies are what take us away from homogeneity. So riding motorcycles, you're one quantum away from everybody else. So everybody drives cars. If you ride motorcycles, you're one quantum away. But if you ride adventure rides, or if you ride the Isle of Man TT, you're at the outer quantum. You're track days. You've gone further. You're at that level. And the people that you share that with. Now, I believe there are two big connections you have. The people in your direct circle. So if you imagine cars, motorcycles generally, and then all these kind of crazy fringe things there, you will have a lot in common with these people, but actually you'd have as much in common. You'd be able to do the same thing with somebody who's done the Dakar and a rally car, because they would understand the shared context. People who've put themselves that much on the edge, you can share because you're there. Now, I think that people don't understand the utility value of this hobby element, this recreational obsessions, as a means of finding depth with human connection. So my closest friends on the island, the one guy is Scottish, we had shared connection, that was the start. And the other person is a board gamer. It's a couple, and we were away with them in Birmingham this week. And you need a shared context, and you can't find shared context in the homogenous pool. You only find it in the split. And so I think if you add on to that, doing it at an extreme level and stuff where people could die, I think you're going to get deep very, very quickly. But even EO, that's what EO is for me, is that they call it intimacy, is a term for EO, that you become instantly intimate with somebody. And I feel like in an EO forum, you get that. I would imagine, having never done a multi-day adventure ride like Matt described, but I would imagine at the end of that, intimacy exists. Like, you could almost sit down if somebody from this group brought another person that he'd done one of those rides with and sat down at a dinner with Matt now, they have a mutual shared experience that they'd be able to bond over almost instantly, even though they shared that separately, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And it's because there's this deep understanding and commonplace.
True.
That's interesting. No, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that if you're an extreme runner or an extreme swimmer or, extreme athlete, that shared experience of the pain and the training and the commitment, whether you like cyclists or motorists or runners or swimmers, I agree. There's a sense of shared understanding in terms of the way your brain operates, the pain, the commitment, that brings people closer, even if it isn't the same hobby. So that completely resonates with me. I really like that thinking.
If you're trying to get anybody to agree with anything on any topic ever, if you want to debate somebody, start by finding something you have in common. And then it's the same thing. If I'm driving along the road and I see a motorcyclist getting into an argument with a vehicle, I put up next to the motorcyclist and I'm sitting there ready to go. Now, these are two complete strangers. He might be an absolute asshole, and the person in the car might be wonderful. The guy in the motorcycle might have caused it, but in that context, I'm team motorcycle. I don't know what to say.
Yep.
It's like two sports team supporters, right? The Manchester United guy will always defend the Sheffield guy, even if the Man United guy is a bully. Anyway, Okay, my regret thing. So this is interesting, Brent, because when you asked me, my first thought was when you first asked the question was, I don't think there's nothing I regret not having done and stuff. It's not like there's a list of things. I've got a list of things I want to still achieve, but my life doesn't feel unfulfilled by it. But my knee-jerk reaction is disappointment. Like, well, fuck, this sucks, because I certainly feel if I was to find out that I was going to die very soon, I would be disappointed because I felt like I would have achieved more in my life. I'd have been, better known, just generally, I thought I would have been more successful than I am in not so much in financial terms, but in maybe reputationally speaking. But here's the weird thing. At that time in which fictitiously, and again, I was totally okay, I thought I was dying, didn't cross my mind, didn't give a fuck. Sending a message to the kids, gave a fuck. But actually, when I thought I could die here and I was thinking of looking out to that thing, I was relatively at peace, which this is the first time I've properly processed it. That's a really good thing. That was the gift that came of that whole thing. If think about it and thinking, well, I did sit there thinking stupidly that I was going to die. But other than making sure, like, my anxiety around should I tell the kids, even to the point of knowing that you don't have to send them a message telling them you love them, because your kids know. Like, they all know. Like, if I didn't send them a final message, it would be totally okay. No one would hate me for it. There'd never be any doubt. And I was kind of okay with it. So even the big thing that haunts me is that my entire life has been a disappointment. That's kind of put that into perspective, because when it came down to it, I wasn't disappointed.
Didn't make a difference.
Yeah, it didn't even factor. And obviously, as three atheists, when we die, it will not matter. So the only kind of margin of where being a disappointment matters is in the few minutes or maybe months for some people between when you know you're going to die and when you die, or the seconds, minutes, or maybe months, and it doesn't matter. So what the fuck? I think how much human bandwidth of our brains we spend worrying about being a disappointment when it actually comes down to it, nobody gives a fuck. Least of all you.
Mm-hmm. So one quick story and then we can wrap up. So when I was 26, I was going through my first spiritual sort of phase, and I was dating this woman who was like super spiritual, whatever. And she told me about this thing called a past life regression. Okay. So now this is going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons. So I was just curious. I'm like, okay, well, let me go and see this therapist, this psychotherapist, whatever. What do they call them anyway? Regressional therapist or whatever. So basically what she does, she relaxes you, and then she walks you through this process. And the premise here is that you've had these past lives. Okay, so to your point, Rich, about if it didn't happen in reality, it still can be, in psychology, it can still be true. Anyway, so before the session, you write down all the things that you want to know, right? Because evidently, when you've left the spiritual world, you can start to get like signals and guidance or whatever, or the human world. And so anyway, so she regressed me. And eventually she says, look down at your feet. So I looked down at my feet. She said, tell me what you see. So I'm like, I'm not wearing any shoes. And so and I described where I was, and there was this long grass, or whatever. And long story short, she said, describe where you live. And I described what I was seeing in my mind. And then she said, okay, fast forward to the moments of your death. And then I died and I left my body. I had a wife, I had a son, evidently. And the moment I died, I had the same psychometric physical reaction. I had pins and needles throughout my entire body. It was like crazy. And then she asked me the questions that I'd written down before. And because I was 26, I was asking dumb shit like, what's the purpose of my life, blah, blah, blah. And all the questions that she asked me, once I had left this human experience, didn't matter. Like the bandwidth that I was putting into all these things, like what's the meaning of my life, purpose, this and that, and blah, blah. None of that stuff mattered. And then then she regressed me back into the room, and she had all these books, and she was in this like sort of library thing. And she said, I want to show you something. Because she also asked me like, what year is it? So I gave her the year. I can't remember what it was. So she pulled out this book of English literature or history. And she paging through. She said, is this what you saw? And it was literally what I was describing, the way that the hut had been built, what was in there, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fuck me. I don't know how to interpret that. But yeah, it was a pretty crazy thing. Bottom line is, once you have these NDEs, because that's the closest thing I've ever had in my life, like you this whole human thing, it's inconsequential in many cases, outside of your family.
Don't do drugs, kids. That's the rule. Don't do drugs.
Put inconsequential, but consequential to you regardless. So it's just like nice.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to say here is that I've never had anything even remotely close like that ever happen to me. And maybe it's because I'm not open to it. Like my wife was like, you should try these things. And I'm like, no, I don't believe in it. So I won't try it. So therefore I won't experience it. But that lack of experience reinforces my atheism. It's like everything you just told me, I'm like, I don't believe it. I believe it happened to you. That's not what I'm not saying you're lying, but I'm going, nah, like it just doesn't penetrate this shield I have around. I just won't believe it. And therefore it reinforces this whole, I'm an atheist. It's a bizarre, weird thing that I've created around myself. But when I hear these stories, I cannot comprehend it. I cannot. And therefore I just go like, I haven't experienced anything similar. I've never seen a ghost, never had a near death. Haven't had any weird deja vu feelings where it's like, oh my God, I genuinely lived days before. None of that sort of shit. And therefore I go like, I'm on this linear path, and when I die, I die. It's a very dogmatic approach to being atheist, I think.
Have you, just to leave you with, have you ever watched David Eagleman's talk on possibilianism?
No. What?
Okay, it's really worthwhile. That's your homework. The homework for you two, and if there's a listener who ever listens to our show, is to watch David Eagleman's Pop Tech talk from, I think, 2014 on possibilianism. And he's an atheist, and he basically says, we all know that none of what we think have been told about God is true. But just because we don't know what we know about God doesn't mean that means that we know absolutely everything. So it's not a complete binary. It's not just because of everything we know is false, therefore there is nothing. It's that nothing has been given to us that there is potentially anything, but we recognize how limited our understanding of what it could be. And one of his books is called Some, and it's really good. It's basically it's 40 chapters, and each chapter starts the instant you die, and then he posits a concept of an afterlife, and some of them are completely absurd, but the premise of the entire book is we don't fucking know. So like there is shit, while I know that there's almost like, but I know with certainty that the Christian Abrahamic God or any of the gods that we've been told are with certainty incorrect. For me to say, I'm not willing to say that I know exactly that means there is absolutely nothing, just that nothing provable has been, no reasonable idea has been presented to me as of yet. So I recognize that there could be some freaky shit, some electromagnetic scientific stuff that we simply just don't understand yet, that some part of our cognitive brain frequency could exist and we could channel electricity from fucking other beings that have lived. That doesn't challenge my atheism at all. It just says that there is science that is yet undiscovered. And
Rich, I mean, I think the weird thing for me is that, like, so I don't believe in God, I don't believe in afterlife, but I absolutely believe in karma. And I believe it. Like, I believe that people who are good and paid forward get it back in spades, and vice versa. And I've seen it, I know it, I believe it, I act it. And yet that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, genuinely. So, like, there are things that I do believe in, which fit into that broader category that make no sense. But yeah, guys, I've got to shoot. It's always a pleasure.
Yep. Wonderful.
Thanks, guys. Everybody else, we'll see you again soon. Cheers, boys.
Hang about 1 sec after. Cheers, boys.